Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate Right Now, where we talk about real estate matters that matter to you. My name is Jay Izzo, and we are live here from Linden Craft Team Studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina, part of the Greater Research Triangle Park. And today's show, we brought him back. We said we would, and we did. Baxter Walker, Avison Young, 1.5 billion in transactions is with us. And we're going to be talking about commercial real estate. And how about this? In light of the fact that we've got an election coming up, right? We're going to call this the State of the Union commercial update. And here's the thing about commercial real estate, folks. I know we talk a lot about residential, but you have to understand that commercial and residential work hand in hand. They do go together, and they impact each other in a variety of different ways. And so we're going to find out what is going on with commercial real estate. So welcome back, Baxter.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, appreciate having you back. So let's do, first of all, the State of the Union for commercial real estate. Where are we at right now with commercial real estate?
Unbelievable. That's the word I like to use. So it's actually commercial real estate really turns more slowly based on market conditions, right? So doesn't do any knee-jerk reactions typically. So it in certain sectors has been still extremely strong, particularly here in the Triangle, very strong. There's still certain sectors that are trying to find their footing, office space, large office space, for example. But retail is strong, and a lot of that, like you said, how residential and commercial do not work in vacuums. They are very dependent on each other. And so as you see more rooftops go up, we know the demand for housing here, and we know new developments, particularly with the southern part of 540 opening up at some point, then the rooftops create demand for retail. They also create demand for medical space. So that's where we see a lot of that growth happen first. But there's housing developers want to be near retail. Retail wants to be near housing developers. So you end up a little bit of chicken and egg. Somebody's got to actually take the leap to do it, and that's how it happens. But there's certain sectors. Industrial is a sector that has done really well. We ended up with a very small amount of vacancy, very similar to what the housing market is seeing. Almost not enough availability. Right.
For the industry sector.
For the industrial flex space.
Industrial flex space.
Yes, sir.
And help people understand who maybe are not familiar with commercial real estate. What are we talking about when we say industrial flex space? What is that?
Okay. So there's generally 4 sectors in commercial. There's subsectors, of course. So you have office space, you have retail space, you have industrial flex space, and you have land. Those are the basic 4. And so with industrial and flex space, industrial space are these, large, heavy distribution facilities. Flex space is typically, it's flex, short for flexible. So you got office and warehouse, and the percentage can change. So that's typically under 15 to 20,000 feet, usually more around the 5 to 10,000 foot mark, where you see a lot of, subcontractors use that type of space, those that need the back area for storage of equipment, storage of material, what have you. They might have a fleet of vehicles, things like that. So again, a lot of that kind of goes back to the residential sector growth. Residential growth has been a huge part of the Triangle's economy for, say, maybe since the 60s, I would say. So that's just a strong part of our economy. And so with that comes the commercial sector that supports it. Got it. So the plumbers, electricians, all the trades, really, and then landscapers,
Amazon distribution, right? Was that part of it too?
Yeah, so that would go on the large, of course, size. Of course, they go very vertical because of how they store. So and then everything in between, and then you have the subsector of life science that typically will occupy a flex or an industrial building. Life science, biotech was certainly the flavor of the month 5-ish years ago. It was blowing up. Pause for a bit, either due to funding or just due to saturation. But then now it's starting to find its healthy balance. So there's still good, healthy demand for it. So we saw a lot of industrial and flex space actually convert over to life science, which bumped up lease rates, bumped up TI allowances, things like that.
Well, in the Research Triangle Park, we have something like somewhere between 350 and 400 major corporations,
Mhm.
businesses that are here.
Mhm.
We're known for a lot of IT tech,
Mhm.
but we also, years ago when I first got here, we had, and I think we still do, a lot of pharmaceutical companies.
Mhm.
I mean, I know it's not the same, but it used to be Burroughs and
Mhm. Burroughs Wellcome, all
GlaxoSmithKline.
that
Yeah,
stuff.
right,
Yeah,
right.
right,
GlaxoSmithKline and everything
right,
like that.
right.
Huge,
Yep.
right? And then of
Mhm.
course, we had Nortel here, and that was huge. Well, those are gone now. And so when we think about that, do we still see that same? Is it still the IT, tech, pharmaceutical? Are we still seeing that sector be steady and strong, or has that starting to change a little bit?
I would say so, particularly in the pharmaceutical biotech. And,
Hmm.
and a lot of that is more branching out to other parts of the triangle
Hmm.
where, you see a lot of the Southwest Wake, see a lot, in Holly Springs where it's popped up and
Right,
in Johnson County, um,
right,
Johnson County, you just see a lot of opportunity there. So that's still strong. The IT sector is where kind of that work from home dynamic
hmm,
is, because a lot of those jobs can be done from home,
right.
say as compared to pharmaceutical or compared to the trades.
Mm.
So that's where that's finding. I worked at IBM back in the 90s. And so when I was there and you're walking from point to point, I
Okay,
see.
hold it. IBM. I've
Mhm.
heard people say a couple things: itty bitty machines, and then there's I've been moved. Which one were you?
Actually, neither. Actually, neither. So growing up here, so yeah, so and I don't know anything about computers. I was in marketing. I know what
Okay,
they
all
look.
right,
I knew what they looked like. Generally, what they could do. But beyond that, I had no idea how they work. And but it was interesting because there were just so many people on campus.
right,
You'd see 30 to 50 people brand new every day, just
right,
walking across campus. And the model, not just there, but in many places, has really changed to
right.
where there is a lot of work from home dynamic, and still many of the larger companies, small companies as well, are still trying to get a handle on that.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because one of the things that I stay up with, the Triangle Business Journal here, which by the way, I highly recommend. If you want to find out more about the Triangle, what's going on in
Mhm.
everything,
Mhm.
but they do a commercial every year. They come out with commercial a section,
Right.
and I'm always checking vacancy rates in commercial,
Mhm.
because vacancy rates tell us a lot. To me, it
Mhm.
does.
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not in your business, but it
Mhm.
seems to have at least some indicators.
Mhm.
Doesn't tell me everything, but it gives me a little bit of indication.
Sure.
And there seems to be a lot of vacancy still in the office space,
Mhm.
that sector
Right.
as well. And I think it's related to, and since COVID, this more remote hybrid, we don't maybe need the office space that we once had. Are
Mhm.
we still seeing that? And you say we're trying to get a handle on that.
Right.
What do you mean when you're trying to get a handle? You've seen it, and what do you mean getting a handle on it?
So a lot of companies, particularly office, and
Mhm.
this goes in the office sector, where a job can be, either technology allows it or what have you, can be done from home. So uh, during the pandemic, a lot of employees got that taste for working from
Right,
home and realized they
right.
really liked it. And then, um, so we've seen an interesting dynamic. And so when it comes to employers trying to get a handle on that, when we're working with those clients, it's no longer we have this many employees, so we need this many desks, this many
Mhm.
chairs,
Right,
this much in the conference room, what have you. So it's much more of a dynamic conversation. Okay, well, how many are working from home 100%? How many
right,
are out of state? How many maybe kind of a hybrid?
right,
So, and then that's it now. What's it going to be 2 or 3 years from now? Your typical lease is 5 years in length.
mhm,
So it is a lot of projections. So it's just getting a handle on that. And so we actually, our office did a study recently where we've seen a dynamic of a higher percentage of employees coming into the office early in the week.
mhm,
So that is increasing. As you get towards the end of the week, it's basically a steady decline. It's actually getting less and less at the end of the
wow,
week. People come to the office. Um, so that's interesting to me, is like, okay, what's behind that? What's creating that? I'm
mm,
big personally on
mm,
just kicking the week off strong, being in the office on
right,
Monday, and
absolutely,
then going from there. So I like that trend. And I also kind of wonder, okay, did we also create a little bit better of a work-life balance after the pandemic, where people do realize that time with family, time away is critical. And if that's maybe creating some more 4.5-day weeks versus 5, or just whatever the case might be. So that may be part of it, but that is an interesting trend that's steady as you go through the week.
Yeah, I think, I do think that's really interesting. And I wonder if, that a lot of businesses will do a meeting earlier in the week, right? Because I know we do here, right? And so I'm wondering if, get it off right, do the early meetings early in the week, get everybody on the board and same page, and then let them go. But then I wonder if the other thing is, as time has gone on, if we're actually getting to the point where we're going, I don't know that I want to be at home this much anymore, and I want to get away from the house, right? I need to get back into the office, because I think some people are feeling. I know my coaching clients have said to me, I miss being around people. I've been doing this so remotely for so long. I want to be around people, and so I think there's a lot of factors that probably go into that. But it's an interesting trend nonetheless, right? Because it does demonstrate some sort of a hybrid model, which may be a benefit to offices, still, that office space.
I would agree. And, to me, Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, whatever software someone uses are great. It's a great tool. But however, being in person creates dynamic conversations. It creates those tangents where if you're on a Zoom, it's just line item.
I do Zoom. A show with Zoom, right? But doing this is just much better.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you and I can actually interact, and I can kind of read you and go, oh, okay, I know where we're going here with this. So I agree with this. So in this vacancy that we have in this office space, which may be changing a little bit, but right now, have we seen prices drop in terms for leasing for office space or purchasing office space?
Start with leasing. For leasing, generally, no.
So
we haven't seen rates drop. We may have seen them plateau, but not drop. So and this trend has been this way over the last couple of years. So
interesting.
Yeah. So now there may be more concessions. We call them concessions at the front end, where some free rent abatement or some extra dollars thrown into changing the office space, for construction. Where the landlord can basically take their medicine at the beginning, but they're still protecting their rate. A year or two down the road, they're at a rate where they need to be, that the bank likes, because the bank may require it to be a certain point for it to perform, for the asset to perform. So, so those on the whole haven't changed. On the purchase side, it is, we talked about this last show, that is still incredibly intense, and the numbers really have gone up on terms of what office space is worth, and which is typically office space is more the buyer compared to like maybe flex or the other sectors. But that's what those numbers per square foot have gone up to, is really because that was stagnant for years, along with lease rates for, say, a small office space. But that has really gone up on the purchase side. And honestly, Jay, it had nothing, and the interest rates did not affect it one bit. May have affected a little bit of how a buyer can leverage it and how they may look at it, particularly from an investment standpoint. But it didn't temper demand at all.
This is interesting to me. So what you're telling me is leasing, and even though we got high vacancies, leasing has not changed its rate, and the prices have gone up. So help the viewer, listener understand when you have vacancies, why is it still so expensive? Help us understand that.
So much of it depends. We'll break it down a little bit. So much of it may depend on when the project was built. Construction costs are where they are. They've kind of leveled off, but they really spiked. Really somewhat to do with, again, post-pandemic, with supply chain.
Right.
And to me, it's more labor supply chain issues.
I agree.
Is why it went up. Demand didn't change at all. So it's the basic model, supply demand, right? And so when you have a a bunch of wood up in Canada that can't get processed,
Mm-hmm.
and it costs more to get processed, or you have breaker boxes that just can't find, so people are paying a pretty penny for it to get it. I should have loaded up my truck with a bunch of breaker boxes back in the day and just realized and just put them on eBay or somewhere. But yeah, who'd have known?
You and I both should have filled.
Right.
We should have both filled them up with with breaker boxes.
Put them out here on the road out here on Six Forks. So but with that being said, so if it's a newer product that was built in the last 5 to 10 years,
right,
the numbers just had to be where they are just to support the project.
Well, right. But it's interesting because I think this is what's a little bit different about residential and commercial, right? So, like, if something's not selling, right, the prices drop.
Typically,
what you're saying to me is, if something's not selling, we're not dropping a price.
Well, and with leases, and many times, whatever the financial institution is, they may say, no, we can't drop it. That's where it goes back to the concessions part. So it'll be interesting to see how the next few years happen, because a lot of loans will balloon,
right, and
just to see how things shake out. But we have started to see an uptick in office activity, generally for the smaller size. As you increase, we just represented a tenant that just went into downtown Durham, and so depending on the sector, kind of subdividing the office sector, depending on that. And we've also seen Kathy, who I work with, brought up a good point when I was speaking to her this morning, how a lot of offices, they may say, well, we're going to basically keep our monthly bill the same because we got it in the budget, but we don't need this much space. So we're going to go into smaller space, but we're going to go into nicer space because we really need to bring. It's not just about getting people to the office. It's about just hiring in general, which is a challenge across every sector when it comes to the triangle. And so we just need to hire. We need the right culture. We just need the right environment, So
a Class A space where something that they can go into.
Yeah, exactly. And so, where it has just more of a kind of inviting, it's not, and again, that kind of adds into one of the newer factors that we work with when we're working with clients looking for space, is looking at that. Right. So it is about, and started to see many, and this was starting to happen already pre-pandemic, where a lot of, it's funny, the Class B, C product really age is what happens. The newer product A, it just happens.
At one time it was an A, and now it's a B.
Yeah, and
it's just over time.
Yeah, yes, sir. And so it's either because of just how it's built, how it's constructed, how much glass, and the amenities, whatever. And so we've seen a lot of more of the Class B product where they've really gone in and just, like some buildings in Regency and Carrier are a good example, and some other ones around, where they've really just gone in and changed the common area. Maybe they've taken what was an office suite and actually made it a common area where it has the vending, and it has just, if somebody wants to get out of their office, they can go down there and just need to change the scenery.
We're seeing that a lot. Let's go to retail sector real quick here. You said retail is really strong right now, which is interesting to me because, we're spending more money online. And so I'm curious, is there a subsector of retail that's really more hot right now than other? Because it seems to me like when I think of large retail, like malls, for instance, it seems like that's a little bit iffy. What's the subsector of retail that's really strong right now?
It's probably more kind of the service, and kind of define that like, hair salons, or we work with Chop now, barber shop, right? And so they're killing it. There's things that you generally have to go, I cannot cut my own hair. It would be a mess.
No.
So
no, please don't.
Yeah. You would never invite me again. Where'd that mullet come from? And so if if you things where you have to go
Right.
and do things, then
Right.
that's where it works well. Restaurants, it kind of goes back, like you said, got to get out of the house.
Right.
And people want to go, they want to go out to
Right.
eat. So we work with a number of restaurants where and there's a number of those that are kind of popping up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so those are the ones, when you're selling widgets, selling things, that's
Right.
a little bit trickier, a little bit more of a challenge because of the online competition. And then medical, I spoke about medical,
Right.
a lot of medical goes into retail.
Right.
So either it's dentist, chiropractic,
Right.
even some more primaries that you would have never seen in a retail center. Now you do.
I see.
And they just want the visibility and just don't want to be stuck up in a medical building.
As we kind of are getting closer to the end here, I do want to ask you something here.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of the NAR settlement,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is really on the residential side.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a lot of curiosity here. Is there any sort of overflow effect from that settlement that's affecting residential real estate that bleeds into the commercial end, or is that an area that's completely separate?
That's a good question. So it's not that I've seen yet.
Okay.
So on the commercial side, and I'm still getting my arms around exactly what that settlement means.
Yeah.
And all the residual.
Everybody is.
Because
we're training on, because the 17th.
Yeah, that's coming fast.
Is a couple days away.
Actually, what's the date? Yeah,
it's a couple days away.
Yeah.
In North Carolina, we started it on the 6th.
Yeah.
So, but the 17th is the official date.
Sure.
And we've got new forms, we got new things, and of course, the big deal is we've always done it in the state of North Carolina, but now you're gonna have a buyer's agency form that says, hey, how much you're gonna pay for the buyer's agent side.
Yeah. Right.
We have to sign a buyer's agency agreement.
Mm-hmm.
We've always done it. It's just got now a little more detail.
Sure.
So, and it's convoluted because I don't know how much real estate's really going to change
mm-hmm.
or not going to change. And none of us know because this is new territory for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So it was something that was curious, with this whole settlement. If, is there some sort of carryover, or is there something that is looked at on the commercial side that says, okay, they're doing buyer's agency agreements and they're having a separate agreement, and maybe the seller, because typically what was in the past is the seller would have the commission and cover both sides, the buyer and seller commission. Right. Maybe that's going to happen in some cases. Maybe it's not going to happen in some cases. Sure. It just depends.
Sure.
So curious how that, if it has any effect and at all.
Well, so on the commercial side, typically, so we don't post, never have posted what the buyer's commission is as a standard.
Okay. Rule of thumb.
Yeah, a rule of thumb. Thank you. I don't like that word, but rule of thumb.
Yeah,
right?
well,
you know what I mean? Yeah, as a practice.
It's not as right as a practice. Sure.
And so it's always, and typically, so if I'm working with a buyer, we're looking at a property. Somewhere early in the conversation, I'll just say, what's the commission arrangement on it? Just early in the conversation
mm-hmm.
and with the listing broker. And then they'll say whatever the split is. Right. But I've always had the conversation with our buyer. So we have the fundamentals are the same between commercial and, in terms of what the real estate commission requires, the fundamentals are the same. So when I have a conversation with a buyer, I say, look, we're going to pursue it first from the seller side. However, if that's not happening, here's the exposure. Right.
Got you. So so it's an agreement as well.
Yep.
Okay.
So I would say from my opinion, having not done residential, really let's say we go back before this settlement, it was more just, it was always an open item of discussion, and the percentage was never publicized. Yeah. And not saying it's right or wrong. That was just the way it was practiced, the way it's been practiced. And so when all this was coming up, I was like, well, that's kind of how we've
always done it
as just part of the industry.
Yeah.
Going out there. And so I'm hoping on the residential side My only concern on that is where I see kind of challenges for buyer's agents, even challenges for listing agents.
Right.
If the client sees opportunity, at the end of the day, it's about transparency. And that's probably, I think, why this all kind of came up to begin with. It was just where
it is.
The client just didn't understand
I agree with
what
you.
they were paying for.
I agree
right,
with you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it kind of blew up. So, to me, it's always, whether it's a client, it's always about, okay, here's the situation, here's the opportunity, here's what we may run into. And then we'll decide if we're going to pursue this opportunity or not because of where it lies on the listing side.
Well, I think it's really interesting, and always saying, first of all, this has been so much fun.
Oh no,
I love having you here.
Yeah.
I always enjoy. I learn so much from you when you're here. People need a commercial broker out there, and they're looking for one. Sure. They should look for you. So tell them how they can get a hold of you. Tell them how they should get a hold of you.
Well, and I'll say it's critical just to have somebody representing you. Right. You know who that is. Of course, I love it. I've been doing this for 20 years plus now, and I love doing what I do because I get to really dive into somebody's business, really understand what they do, how they do it, why somebody makes this widget, and realize somebody's got to make this thing, and then how they do it and how they do it. So I just love doing it. So, but it's really critical just to have some type of representation. So yeah, I'm with Avison Young, been there 4 years now. And we're based out of Toronto. We're located in Raleigh, in Wade Park, near PNC Arena. And so I can get Jay to share my email, my cell number. And
give them your email. Say it.
Okay, sure. It's baxter.walker@avisonyoung.com.
It's on his shirt, by the way.
It's on my shirt. Yeah,
right
I'm logoed up today.
Baxter.walker@avisonyoung.com. And what's the phone number that they can?
I'll give myself. It's the best way to reach me. Sure, it's 919-606-3319. I learned that trick from my dad about the last 4 digits is say it in 2 numbers versus 4.
Yeah.
It's easy to remember.
So it's 606
3319.
3319. It's interesting because my last 4 digits is 2121.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So I always tell people
2121.
It's drinking age. That's what it is.
Correct.
Thanks for being on.
No, my pleasure.
Hey, folks, you know what? This is a show. I say to you all the time, you had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you so much. Give us a 5-star review and a positive review wherever you're watching or listening to this show. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube too. That'd be fantastic. And you know what? We thank you so much. And as I say to you all over the world, you know what it is. Ciao, everybody.